California Congressman Kevin Kiley. Congressman, it's great to see you. So what I think's interesting about this resolution that you spearheaded is 35 Democrats crossed the aisle to join Republicans in voting for this. Why do you think they did that? And does this signal any sort of change in the Democrat Party?
Well, I think they did it because it's common sense. I mean, Gavin Newsom literally tried to ban all gas cars in California. And by the way, he did this a few years ago in the midst of the worst wildfire in our state's history. People were suffering. Our firefighters were desperately trying to get the blaze under control. And Newsom comes out and says, here, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to ban gas cars. And he said, our cars are making wildfires worse. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then after we passed my resolution a few days ago, Newsom comes out and says that this is the work of MAGA Republicans hell-bent on making California smoggy again. Well, as you said, this would come as a surprise to the 35 Democrats who crossed party lines to vote in favor of my resolution. And by the way, this is something that affects not just California. You have 11 states that are going along with it that want to say the government should be able to choose your car. Gavin Newsom, should you be able to choose your car rather than being able to choose it yourself. So 35, it isn't a lot. It isn't the majority of the caucus by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it shows there at least a little bit of room for bipartisan common sense to prevail in this Congress.
Now, Congressman, my understanding is you can't even buy a gas-powered lawnmower, a new one, there in California, along with a lot of other gas-powered things. They've kind of gone off to the nutty side, but what else can be done to rein them back into reality?
My gosh, they add things every year. You know, it's what can we ban next? They came for the cars, then the trucks, then the buses, then they came for the trains, even though there are no non-electric train alternatives that exist at this point. And then they came for the lawnmowers and the leaf blowers. So the good news is we are rolling all of that back. Some of the waivers that were sought were immediately withdrawn. Others were undoing through this process known as the Congressional Review Act. And it's one of many ways that we're pushing back against the likes of Gavin Newsom or Ms. James, for that matter, because if you look at states like California and like New York, you see a massive shift in voter sentiment. They're voting for changes like people overwhelmingly favor this resolution to get rid of the gas car ban. In the last elections in New York and California, you saw significant movement towards the Republican side. In California, as a matter of fact, we've registered 1 million new Republicans in our state since Gavin Newsom became governor. So it's precisely these states like California and New York that have seen the excesses of radical progressivism and how it's undercut our quality of life. And it's sort of ironically enough are traditionally deeply blue states that are really catalyzing a lot of the change in this country now.
But the left doesn't want us to have nice things. We can't. Congressman, we also want to get your take on this. So the Trump versus Harvard battle, I mean, it's getting serious with the university's tax-exempt status on the line.
Moments ago, the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, spoke to Larry Kudlow on the administration's talks with the Ivy League. Take a listen.
We've talked to them. Their answer to us was filing a lawsuit on freedom of speech, and I have said that is not the issue. It's a civil rights issue on campus relative to the anti-Semitism. And they've just said that we're trying to dictate to them how they should run their university, which is clearly not the case. But why should taxpayers continue to give money to a university that has an endowment of over $53 billion?
So what's your take on that?
Well, I'd say for anyone who questions what the administration is doing here, go and talk to the Jewish students on campus at Harvard. I've talked to a number of them, or actually just about 20 minutes ago, I was meeting with a group of Jewish students from another university, Northwestern, who have been through things that no young person in this country should ever have to go through, who have been ostracized for their identity, who had to hide their identity, who have been subject to harassment and even violence in some cases, who had these illegal encampments take over campus quads and take over buildings. All the while, the university has failed to hold those who are responsible accountable and has in many cases created the culture that allowed this to happen. The executive director of Hillel at Harvard said that there's been a long-standing pervasive culture of harassment and discrimination, and that a lot of it has come from what actually happens inside of the classroom. And so I think when you have an issue like this that is so absolutely appalling, where you have one of the world's most ancient and retrograde prejudices reemerges in in this just absolutely horrifying way at what we're supposed to be our leading universities, it requires asking really deep questions about how we got here. It shows that something is fundamentally wrong at these institutions, that we need institutional reform. And I think the administration is absolutely right to pick this battle with Harvard and to say that we are going to demand change here, because Harvard, for better or worse, has guided higher education in this country.
But Congressman, a $53 billion endowment, why are they getting that money? Why are they getting taxpayer money to begin with?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are asking that question. And I think that, for them to say, look, we do really important research, therefore we're entitled to keep getting unlimited funding, even though we have these massive civil rights violations going on our campus, that's a completely wrong-headed response. Imagine if Harvard had, Klan rallies that are going on in Harvard Yard. Would they say, well, you should still give us federal funding because we really do important research? No, of course not. We would say that no taxpayer should be funding in any way an institution that countenances that kind of abhorrent conduct. But that's, and that same argument applies here. We've seen absolutely unacceptable things happen on that campus. The administration's response has been among the worst in the country. We all saw, of course, their former president. I asked her at that hearing, could a Jewish student, would you tell their parents they could even feel safe on your campus? And she couldn't even give me an answer to that question.
Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Line.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.